Hi there, welcome to this second video in the build of a 40-inch wingspan Keil Kraft Gypsy. Now this is a 1949 design and it's going to be rubber powered. Now I'm building this from a Ripmax modern laser cut kit, and I've had a few problems with it. Hopefully you've seen the first video. But in that first video I found out that the plans supplied in the kit were actually printed out too small. They're about 5% too small. So if you measure the wingspan, measure the wings individually, they come out at 19 inches. So it's giving us a wingspan of 38 inches instead of 40. I didn't realise this until I built 1.5 sides of the fuselage. And I was perplexed really as to why these formers 1, 2 and 3 didn't seem to fit and needed just trimming a little bit to size. And I've got one of the original fuselage sides here I started to build, and we can see if I line the tail of this up, and you can see there's about 1.5 inches difference in the length of that. So like I say, the plans are about 5% too small, and I know I always say check the plans, and I thought because it's a Ripmax, a reputable company, and it's a modern kit, I thought the plans would be printed out okay, but sadly they weren't. So at the end of the last video I said, right, I'm going to get these fuselage sides built up to the correct size. I'm lucky in the fact that the plans for this Gypsy are available on AutoZone, and they are the correct size on AutoZone. So I've printed out all of the plans and stuck them together, and those are the plans I'm going to be using. I'll put the original Ripmax plans on the wall just so I can look at it, but I have to remind myself not to take any measurements for that because they're wrong. I contacted Ripmax and let them know. I haven't had a reply yet, but I contacted them on a Friday afternoon. It's now Sunday, so I wouldn't have expected a reply over the weekend. But we'll see what happens next week, and I'll keep you updated on if and when I get a response from Ripmax. But anyway, in this video I'm going to get these two fuselage sides together, and we're going to get this fuselage more or less finished, hopefully. Once we've got the fuselage sides done and they're off the building board, we need to decide which are the two outside edges. So essentially the cleaner, smoother, nicer sides. And I've done that, and that's how they're going to go together. And I've marked on the inside face with an eye here so that I don't forget which is the inside and which is the outside. Once I've decided which were the nicer sides, the flatter side, or not the flatter, but without any sort of lumps or anything, I gave them a sand. Now this is 1/8 balsa, so we need to be really careful. But we can still do it. We just need to be very careful how we're doing this. No side to side movement or they're just going to break. Going to snap like a twig. We just need to sand them very carefully. So I've got these done, they're all cleaned up, and these are my two outside faces. Let's just turn those over, and I've made up a couple of cross formers which have got some pre-cut V's for the wings to sit in, and these are going to go on the fuselage sides nice and square like that. Now we can glue these in place using a square or a square block, because this section of the fuselage here is parallel sided, so these do want to be set square to the table and square to the fuselage side. After that we then pull in the tail. We've got some F9s here that go into the tail here just to hold that top and bottom, and then we're going to pull in the nose, and we've got some cross pieces with some stringers to get that lovely Gypsy nose shape. So I'm going to get on. I've got all the pieces here that I need, all of the laser cut pieces. Laser cutting is quite nice on this, but the balsa is really hard in places, too hard to be honest. So I will get on and start to pull this together, and we'll have an update soon. Well, I thought I'd just show you how I'm going to line up this to pull in the tail. I've got the central section here between these two formers, all nice and square, and I'm happy, parallel sided, as I said, nice and square. And I've lined up the fuselage sides with the lines on the cutting mat, and I've taken a centre line all the way down and marked that just here on a piece of tape. So now we know that where the centre is to pull that in to get these so they're just right. Last thing we want to do is get a crooked tail. And I've got a little bit of a weight here just to provide the equal amount of lift on either side so we don't get them sort of not level. So we'll pull that in, and we've got this F9 here which just goes in there to maintain that correct angle at the rear. So I will get that done, and I'm also going to pull in the front. We've got a couple of similar pieces to go in here, and then we can start to build up the nose of this plane, which gives it that lovely gypsy character. Just a quick update with this now. I'm cracking on with it. I've got the back pulled in, I've got the front pulled in, and you have to have a little bit of a 1/16 overhang on the right side here so that you get the correct thrust angle. I've got in the cross pieces here. These are sort of angled for the wings to come into, and I'm just doing these cross braces now. And what I'm doing is I'm cutting them in pairs. I'm measuring them off the plans, and then I'm cutting them both together, even though I can only install the top, and then I'll have to turn it over and install the bottom. But by cutting them all together, at least I'm ensuring that that they're all the correct size, or they're in matching pairs, should I say. And because if we cut the top and then we cut the bottom, the chances are we're going to get them different. So I'll carry on getting this sticked up right the way through to the front there, and then we can think about the getting this nose section done. But actually I think we need to do the landing gear before that. But anyway, we're getting there. Right, well, I've been cracking on with this now, and I'm really pleased with how this fuselage has come out. It's come out lovely and straight. It's gone together really nice, despite the hiccups we had with the fuselage sides in the very first video. I've got all the cross members in. I've got the extra supports for where the dowel is going for the motor. Got a bit there for the tailplane to sit on. We've got a bit there where we need to do a keel. And we still need to shape up the front a little bit. We need to give it a very careful light sand. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make up the keel, or a skid, at the back here. And that's just comprised of 3 pieces. So I'll get these broken out, and or cut out should I say, and I will get that glued up and fitted, and we'll see how that goes. Right, well, I've now got this skid cut out, glued up and fitted, and it's looking really good. It's slightly smaller than it should be because the cuts on the balsa from the laser cutting didn't actually make a very nice fitment, and I had to trim them and I had to sand them, and consequently it's a little bit smaller than it should be, but you can't tell. So I'm perfectly happy with it, and it wasn't much effort to modify it. You can see that's gone on really nice, so I'm pleased with that. It's good to see it sat on the tail skid there. So the next job now, before we start doing the nose, that iconic sort of gypsy nose with the stringers, I need to make up the landing gear. Now the wire that they provided in the box, 2 short lengths, and you're supposed to kind of just join it together or just butt it up, but I started bending it and it is so soft. I've never seen wire as soft as that. I mean, it's like a coat hanger really. It's absolutely no good for landing gear. So I mean, every time you land, every time you touch the ground, it's going to be bending, and you're going to be straightening it out, and it's going to be bending, and every time you straighten it, it's going to be putting stress on the model, and you're going to end up with not very nice landing gears. So I'm kind of disappointed with this wire, and I am not going to use it. But it says on the plans, both sets of plans, it should be 14 gauge wire, which comes out to about 2 millimeters. And I've got some 2 millimeters music wire here, and so I'm going to use that. And it's a meter long. Yep, it's a meter long, so I can use this as one piece. I can make the landing gear out of one piece of wire. Now, on the plans, it shows the wire coming up this strut on the inside and across this strut on the top, and basically being bound with cord and glued. Well, these struts aren't very strong. I don't like the idea of binding it and gluing it, because it's going to be messy on the outside here, and you'll see it through the tissue. The tissue will be uneven. So I'm thinking about a slightly different solution to this, something perhaps a little bit stronger, but certainly that looks a lot nicer. So I'm going to get this bent up. I'm going to have a play around with how I can do that, and I will show you before I fit it. Right, well, I've got my landing gear bent up, and I've just copied the shape for the angles and everything from the plans, from the outer zone plans. And what I've done is, rather than bringing the steel up onto these members and across to be bound, I've actually run it flat along the fuselage here, and I've got that sitting on a piece of 1/16 plywood, and I'm going to drill holes in that, and I'm going to bind it, and I'm going to glue it. So this piece of 1/16 plywood is really light, so it should be fine. Now, like that, it's not going to be strong enough, so what we need to do is transfer the pressure, the load, onto these cross members and this former here. So we're going to put some gussets in either side. We'll put some gussets in there to transfer the load, and we may even run a piece of lengthways. But we just need to make this stronger, because if it's left like that, just glued like that, as soon as you get some pressure on the front of the legs, it's just going to whip out the cross members. Now, I'm also going to put in a piece of ply in front of that once I've got it done, just to kind of close that area off, so that the tissue has something nice to attach to, and it hasn't got the holes in for the wire, where it's going to be a weakness, and it will rip. Now, if we just take that out, we can see the wire just pops out. Put that on one side, and we've got our piece of 1/16 plywood. And like I say, I think this will be plenty strong enough, as long as we transfer the load to these vertical members here. Yeah, and once it's in play, once this is screwed on, we should hopefully just be able to lift it up and thread it into place. So I will get on with that now, get the holes drilled, get it sewn into place, and then get this fitted. Quick progress update. You can see I've started sewing this on here, and got the holes drilled in the plywood there, and I'm going to sew those areas now. And once this is done, I don't know whether I said earlier, but I'll just smear some epoxy onto the stitching, probably on both sides, and then we'll get this fitted. Well, I've now got the landing gear glued in, and as we can see, it's sat on its legs. And if we take a closer look at that, as I said, I've got the plate just glued in there, and I put in some pieces of balsa uprights on there and there, and they just splay out a little bit, a bit of a gusset at the bottom. I've also put in some triangular gussets either side, and I've set these back so they won't be covered by the tissue. I mean, you'll probably still see them through the tissue, but they're not going to be that obvious. So I mean, that seems pretty secure now. There's no movement, and it's transferring all the load, the forces, sort of up and away. So I think that's probably a lot stronger than it would have been originally, but only time will tell. Now, the next job, and the last job I'm going to do today, is to get this nose done. I've been talking about this a few times, and I'm really keen to get it done. And we've just got 5 formers that go across the front here. Let me just zoom in. So as I said, we've got the 5 formers. Most of them correspond to the cross pieces here and the verticals, but this one doesn't. It's slightly closer to the cabin, and we need to be mindful of the dashboard when we put this one in, so that it lines up, or at least it's not too far away. So it just sits like that. And we've got these stringers to run through to the front and just blend in. And just on the front, I put in this piece of ply, I think it's N or N1, and that will just give it a little bit of strength and stop it kind of flexing or twisting. So I'll get that done and we'll have a look once it's done. Okay, quick update before I get this finished. As you can see, I've got the cross formers in and all this, these stringers in, and I'm really pleased. It's looking great, and I can't wait now to get this sanded and just cleaned up. But you'll see here I've got the dashboard in, and there's a little bit of a gap there. Now on the Ripmax kit, it shows the stringers coming right back to here, which I didn't want to do because I want something for the acetate to stick onto and the tissue. On the outer zone plans, the original plans, it shows this being filled with, it says cartridge paper, so like you know, thick paper. But what I've done, and it looks a right mess at the moment, is I've just filled this gap with some really soft, I mean it's the softest balsa that I've got, and it's sticking proud now. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim this a little bit, and then I'm going to get my sander and just sand this off, and we'll end up with a really nice shape here. I'm sure we will. And if there's any small gaps, I can always put some really light filler in, but to be honest, I think we can probably get away with it. Got to do the other side now, but we'll come and have a look when it's done. Right, well, I've now got this nose section finished, and I'm really pleased with how it's looking. These thin stringers on the Gypsy just look absolutely lovely, and you can see where I filled that in with that really soft balsa, and that's sanded really nice. It's still very slightly proud and will need finishing off when I sand and prepare the whole model before I start covering it. But I'm pleased to get that done, and like I say, I think having this solid is a much better solution than either cartridge paper or bringing the stringers along. It'll just make a much better surface for attaching the windscreen, and as I said, I don't think that's added hardly any weight at all because the balsa I put in there was so soft. Well, I said I would let you know if I'd had a response from Ripmax. If you remember, I'd had an issue with the plans in the kit being about 5% too small. Well, they've sent me a really nice apologetic email, which I'm really pleased with. And essentially they said they thought they'd withdrawn all the kits where they'd identified a problem with the plans, but obviously I still managed to get one. And what they're doing is they're getting these plans reprinted, and they're going to send me a copy of those once that's done. And they also made me another generous offer, which I'm really pleased about. So at the end of the day, I'm really pleased with their customer response, really. I mean, it's a long established company, so you would with a good reputation, so you would expect this kind of customer service. Like I say, I'm really happy, so thanks very much Ripmax for putting this right. Well, as you can see, this fuselage now is more or less finished. There's just a few little tweaks and things and a finishing sand. So now it's time to move on and think about doing either the wings or the tail assembly. But I'll be honest with you, I'm really enjoying this Gypsy build. I mean, it's a great design, 1949, it's a classic Wakefield model, so it is really exciting to see it starting to take shape, despite the problems with this Ripmax kit that I've been having. But anyway, I'm going to draw this to a close now, and I hope you'll come back and see how we get on in the next video. Like I say, tail assembly, wings, not sure what it's going to be. But anyway, thanks very much for watching.